Welcome to DevJams. This is where we talk with developers who are doing interesting, exciting, informative things that are just kind of tickling the brain when it comes to the ways that we are working with images and videos on the web and on mobile today. This program is meant to be showing the amazing developers that are doing this work. And because this program is developed by Cloudinary, they are probably using Cloudinary for pushing the boundaries of what images and videos can be on the web today. My name is Sam Brace, and I am the Senior Director of Customer Education and Community at Cloudinary. And for every single one of these programs, we are joined by Jen Brisman, who is a technical curriculum engineer here at Cloudinary and a member of my customer education team. So Jen, I am so excited to have you here for today's episode.
Hey, happy to be here.
So Jen, we're going to be talking with Matt Kane, who is a principal engineer at Netlify. And he's developed a project called Unpic, which basically creates a very agnostic way of looking at content delivery networks and making it very easy for developers, regardless if they're using a service like Cloudinary or they're using other services that use content delivery networks, let's say like Contentful or Shopify. It allows for them to be able to deliver a lot of those things without missing a lot of the components along the way. So I'm very, very excited to talk with Matt. But I'd love to find out from you, why are you excited for today's program?
Yeah, so, it can take a lot of work to deliver performant images. And what Matt's created is just a really easy, simple way to do this with Cloudinary and, as you said, other CDNs. And I'm just excited to hear how it works and hopefully inspire some people to use Unpic.
Absolutely. And as you'll see on my screen here, we are showing the main website that we have for this Unpic project that Matt has developed. That's going to be Unpic, so that's unpic.pics, which is PICS. So make sure to check out unpic.pics for a lot of the information. Also, we will be diving into the open GitHub repository for the overall project, and that's going to be at Matt's overall GitHub handle and many different projects and repositories that he has there as well. So we'll, of course, have that as show links, and that one will be a little bit harder to say out loud and to spell out the way I did with the unpics.pic example. And of course, as always, before we get into today's episode, make sure that you know that we are putting out podcasts on the regular, constantly. And we've done this for many years now at Cloudinary. So if you want to learn from developers like Matt, but others that have been doing amazing things with images and videos on the web, then take a chance to dive into some of the podcast episodes that we have here at cloudinary.com/podcasts. Or even communicate with some of those developers and share some of your own best practices and learn from others at our Cloudinary community, which is community.cloudinary.com. So with that said, and that little bit of bumps for all the things we're going to be talking about here today, let's bring on our friend, Mr. Matt Kane. So Matt, great to have you here.
Hey, good to see you.
So Matt, we've talked a little bit about you. We've said nice things saying that you work at Netlify, of course, is an amazing company. We love Netlify here at Cloudinary, but give us a little bit of detail for yourself. Tell us about who you are and maybe also lead into why did this Unpic thing start to become an overall project that you developed?
Yeah, hi. Well, so I've been working on the things on the web since the 20th century. So it's something that I've been around the block a bit, and have been kind of worked in all these different areas of web and mobile. And yeah, as you said, I'm currently working at Netlify, but I'm kind of particularly love open source. At Netlify, a lot of my work has been on making web frameworks work well on Netlify. So I do the integrations with Next.js and Gatsby and Astro and all the top frameworks. And then before that, so I've been at Netlify for about 2 years, bit over 2 years. And then before that, I was at Gatsby, where I was on the open source team there as well. So I've kind of very much lived and breathed the web in my career, like for most of my adult life. And so it's something that I've just really, the thing I love at the moment is working in all of these different sorts of open source projects. So this is kind of where I've come from with with my work on Unpic, it's sort of bringing together all these different parts of the things that I like working on, whether that is the front-end frameworks or images and open source.
So then talk to me about Unpic a little bit here, because we've mentioned that this is something that's addressing something that's happened quite a bit, where there's a lot of services that are using content delivery networks. As we pointed out, Cloudinary does do this, where a lot of our images that are delivered, they're being delivered and being using content delivery networks to make sure that it's easy for people in different parts of the world to access it quickly, the caching mechanisms that are associated with it. We have plenty of content to talk about why CDNs are fantastic. But we're not the only ones, of course. We're, as I mentioned earlier, contentful content management systems, a lot of times will be using different forms of the content delivery network that's going to be there. Maybe I said that correctly. Let me make sure I said it right. Contentful is a content management system that is using a content delivery network. Make sure I didn't mess that up. And then also to say that again, there's other services that are much more, they're kind of CMS-like, but also that are much more tied to e-commerce and have other mechanisms that make them different than a CMS, like a Shopify. And they also use content delivery networks. So talk to me about why the Unpic project was being developed, maybe also addressing what's happening with all of this CDN usage now today.
Absolutely. So from my background on this and the way that I came into this is that if a lot of people might know Gatsby, and when people were using Gatsby when it was first coming out, one of the first things that people loved about Gatsby so much was its image handling, because it was one of the first frameworks that did all of the image resizing and generating image tags and everything for you. Because 5 years ago, it was not something that was easily done. It's kind of table stakes now for a framework to be able to do some sort of handling of images, but at the time it was very unusual. So one of the projects that I worked on at Gatsby was their image plugin. So it was the Gatsby image plugin, which was completely rewritten a few years ago, was like kind of my pet project that I was one of the things that I worked on. So that's how I got really down and fully in the world of web images, and knowing my AVIFs from my WebPs and knowing about like where these, what the pros and cons are and the way, how you deliver them with the different tags and all that kind of stuff. So that's one way that I came from it. But because one of the things at the time there was obviously, at that point when Gatsby first came around, mostly people were just like pre-building their images. So, at build time, chopping them up rather than using services that do the resizing on the fly, such as, whether that's a CMS like Contentful or something, or Shopify, or if it's a service like Cloudinary that is more focused directly on that kind of thing. So this was one of the sort of conflicts that I saw when I was working on the Gatsby plugin. And one of the things that I did at Gatsby was try and put in support for image CDN services like Cloudinary, so that you can now, with Gatsby, you were able to use Cloudinary as instead of doing build time, for your image processing, you would do the processing at runtime, and it would use Cloudinary. Now, moving along, I moved on from Gatsby, and then I moved to Netlify, where I works with all the frameworks. And obviously, each framework has got its own way of handling images, and they some are better than others, but generally there's a pretty similar kind of approach on a lot of them, in that they will either do a thing at build time or they will have some sort of image server that they do at runtime. So, or, somewhere in between. And so obviously the most popular framework is Next.js, and the way that Next.js does it is that it effectively has its own image server by default, and it will process the images on the fly. Now, this is something that has kind of riled me up. I'm working at Netlify. I'm seeing, tens of thousands of customers who are deploying, Next.js sites every day. And mostly they are using Next image directly, and it's resizing their images for them, all well and good. But it's resizing images that are coming from a CDN that can do the image site resizing itself. So I was like, this is something that was bugging me, and I was going on about. I was like, okay, let's get some data. So, I'm not going to breach any of my NDAs there when I say, basically, I pulled up a load of our data and I ran a load of queries to find out what people were actually requesting. And over 50% of the requests for Next.js images coming through to Netlify were loading a source image from somewhere that can resize the images itself. And I was like, what is going on here? And a lot of the times they were loading a resized image. And so it was being resized twice. And this is, I think, this is particularly a problem with Next.js because it does not make it, it doesn't try to make it easy for you to do that. You can go in there and you can do custom loaders and so on, but it's not the happy path. It's not particularly well documented, so basically you have to create a code component to do it yourself. So that was what led me into this thinking. And I was thinking, is there a way that we can detect this automatically? Little knowing what I was getting myself into. So basically, the very first iteration of Unpic is what I call the universal translator. And that's what's now I call Unpic lib. And it's basically what it does is a way of manipulating image URLs that come from some image CDN. Now, I'm going to apologize now because I use image CDN as a catch-all because I need a way of referring to effectively any service that has a URL-based API to do an image transform. And that can be someone like Cloudinary, which is, that's your bread and butter. Or it can be something like Shopify, that it's just something that's on the side that probably most people don't even realize it can do. Or it can be, basically every headless CMS will supports it as well. So that's kind of the approach there. And see, we support everything, and I think I might even not be all of them up supported there at the moment. But basically, the idea is that if you have an image that is served from something that can dynamically change it on the fly, we want to be able to detect it. We want to be able to have a common interface to them, because obviously, each of the different services has got its own great SDKs and APIs for manipulating their URLs and generating them. And but if you're trying to do this in an automated way, you can't load up every single SDK for every single one. And so the idea here is to provide an absolute minimum baseline. So I'm not giving you any of your support for your lovely effects and text overlays and, all this stuff. What I'm trying to do is provide the absolute minimum needed in order to generate an image tag. So resizing, changing the format, cropping, and giving it basically an interface that gives the standard that is going to work across absolutely everything.
One thing that I loved about what you did, speaking about some of the transformations that are there, was that you also invoke the ability to do the automatic format transformations through this as well. So that way, if you are using a service like Cloudinary and you're applying our F-Auto transformation, which is, I think, hopefully people of this program have heard F-Auto at least once in this. I feel like we say it at least 10,000 times a day.
Yeah.
But it is to say, like, if you want it to be a JPEG, great. But then if our browser sees that it'd be better as a WebP or as an AVIF or something else, then it would deliver as that. But you also support that too, which is a wonderful thing. So it's where, even though, as you said, it's just a certain amount of transformations that you are supporting, it's still some of the most important ones that you are supporting as well.
Absolutely. And it's not just that I support it, I insist on it. You can override it, but I make it the default. I believe that everyone should use it, as I'm sure that you do as well. So I force it, and you have to try hard to make it not use that. And it uses the equivalent of that for every CDN that supports it. So it uses F-Auto there for Cloudinary, and it uses the equivalent for all of the others that are able to do it. And not all of them can, but that's the basis of it. So you can use this as it stands on its own, and it's not something that is mostly people are going to use on their own, because it's a part of a toolkit. It's something that you need if you are going to be doing something like what I was wanting to do, which is work out a way of automatically intercepting them. Now, as soon as I built this, I suddenly thought back to my old days of building the Gatsby image component. Now, I still believe the Gatsby image component is really great, but it's getting on a bit now. It's nearly 3 years old, and I think that every framework should have it. The thing that I really liked about the Gatsby one is that, firstly, one of the things it's got its own, the different ways of doing the layouts, the resizing, and the full width or the constrained layouts and the aspect ratio stuff. A lot of that had to be, there was quite a bit of hackery that was needed back in the old days, and it was the same with the Gatsby one, and it's the same with the old Next.js, Next Image. The new one released last year gets rid of some of that, but it basically most of this stuff can now be done natively. So the web platform can do most of these things yourself. So you can use the CSS, can do aspect ratio now. All of the lazy loading is supported by browsers automatically, and you can set all these different best practices in there. So I did. I sort of thought, well, what if I was building an image component today from scratch that worked everywhere for every framework and to none? What would I do and what would I need? And I think it's something that I thought about before, but the missing part that had always been there was a way to resize the images in a generic way. And, if I was going to build something specifically for Cloudinary, then great. But, I wasn't going to do that. I don't work for you guys. And, I'm a user, and it's something that I find useful. But really, what interests me is building stuff for everybody, for everything. So suddenly I got a way of taking what I was seeing as over 50% of the image requests that I was getting, and we could just give them a component that would work for everything. So that was suddenly the point there, is like, right, now I have a way of building the source set that is, that's the key that I'm trying to do there. I'm trying to build the URL source set, which involves generating all these different sized images. And so what I thought was, well, let's think about what the minimum viable modern web image is. And from where I stand, the things that you want in an image on the web, firstly, you want it to be responsive. Right. You need to have all the, you need a source set with sizes that, and they're really, they are not easy to generate. And obviously, you basically should be using a library to do it for you. Unless you're doing fancy things with art direction, you probably just want to let a library do it for you. If you're doing a auto format, you don't need to use a picture tag probably, so you can do it all in an image tag. So, and then we want to do the best practices. And I was like, what are the best practices today? So I had to go, because obviously the web platform, we love it. It moves fast. And actually the thing that I found best is, I read loads of stuff. And the best thing that I read about it was by Steve from builder.io. He wrote a brilliant piece that is effectively like, what is the state of the art in 2023 of best practices for web images? And it's things like, decoding async and lazy loading, and all these kind of things in there. So I was like, right, okay, I'm gonna try and simplify that so that the default is best practices. And the other thing that I want to do, which was what I got from the Gatsby image thing, is I want to have some defaults for the styling, effectively for the resizing. And from that, you also then get what are you going to do for the, that is going to show what you would generate for the sizes attribute and the source set. So I just shamelessly nicked the ones that we did for Gatsby image because I thought they were good. And that gives us 3 layouts there. There's fixed, which is your old school image tag, which is, fixed in size. There's full width, which is hero banner type thing. Full design optimized for the full width of the screen, either keeps its aspect ratio or keeps its fixed height. And then constrained, which is the one that I make as the default, which is up to a max. You set a fixed size, but if your container is smaller, it will resize down to stay in the container. And that's sort of what we now expect a where image to do. So I've made that the default. And from those, I was then able to work out what the best source set and sizes, attributes, and everything were for all of those. So
amazing, truly amazing. And I feel like this is a very natural point for us to work. At least what I'm saying, I would love to see it. So what I would do. So I know that you have plenty of demonstrations. As we also point out, you have lots of different support for various types of front-end frameworks out there: Angular, Astro, Svelte, Vue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you have in store for us here?
Well, I am going to show some stuff on Astro because Astro is my favorite framework, I think. And Astro obviously supports like loads of different front-end frameworks itself. So you can write your front-end thing in all sorts of different things. But what I'm going to be showing here is writing it as an Astro component. Okay. So Astro, if anyone who's not aware of them, and Astro supports .astro files, which are basically like an HTML or JSX type syntax. So this here is basically almost entirely the default Astro starter, and all I've done is remove the width of the main column, so that I've got a full width screen here. And you see you've got front matter here, which is where you can put some JavaScript, and then you've got the main body here. And the key with the Unpic is that the syntax for all of the different frameworks is very similar. All of them, and the key is that it's supposed to be as close to an image tag as possible. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to check that I have put actually installed it. So I'm going to first install. So I'm using pnpm. So this is why I've got
it's perfect
with shortcuts and stuff in there. So that's if it's looking a bit strange syntax. So there we go. So I've just installed Unpic Astro here. So now I'm going to import image from Unpic Astro. And now I will stick an image in there. So let's so this is obviously I'm going to just grab myself an image here. Let's find something cute. I've got my little list of images over on the other side there. And then let's give it
So it looks like at this point we're adding in we're designating the width at 400 pixels in width, and then looks like we're going to make the height 300 pixels in.
Yeah. So this is about as simple as you can possibly get for an image tag. As you can see, the syntax is exactly the same as an image tag, and you can it supports any image attribute as well. So you can put in any supported, image tag thing, and it will go through and it will support those and pass it through. But as it stands, this is like your minimum viable tag.
Yes.
And so let's moment of truth. There we go. So right, what have I done? I've just made an image. I've just put an image tag in there. Okay, so what we see here is obviously this is just a Cloudinary image. So I've not set anything here other than just passing in the fact that I have an image tag, put in the outs, attributes, and so on. So there we go. Right. Okay. That was nice meeting you. Goodbye. See you next week. But the key here is when we then inspect it. So that is what we've generated here. So this is not just an image tag. So what we've done here is you can see the parts in there that are let's see if I can blow that one up a bit. So there are parts that you can see that were passed in. So the alt is taken straight through. By default, we do lazy loading and async decoding. I'll show you some more about that after. And then this is the source set that has been generated.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now we can see it. This is pretty cool, Matt.
So what we've got here is obviously it's recognized that this is a Cloudinary URL, not hard to do. And so what it's done here is if we saw here, it was a 400 by 300 image that we've done here. So now it is put in those tags there. It's chosen f-auto, as we said, and then it's done the CL fill there because that gives the same behavior as the object fit cover. So that's effectively what I try to emulate is object fit cover. So for people who don't know what object fit cover is, it's a CSS attribute that you can apply to an image tag or to a video or whatever. And what it does is it resizes the image so without changing the aspect ratio to a size where it covers the view the size of the element that you've created. So if the aspect ratio is different, it will crop it so that it fits perfectly. And I think that is the most natural thing that you can have from there. So what I've done is I've made the image CDNs behave in the same way. So this is what I've put on there. So what it's doing here is it's detected this as a Cloudinary URL, and then it is generated these sizes. So why has it generated these sizes here? Strange, it seems pretty arbitrary. It's not totally arbitrary. There is some reasoning behind it, and you see here it falls back to a regular image as well. But we've got all of these different size ones as well going through there. So we've got the 400 that we requested. We've got an 800. So that's for the two. That's for a double resolution in there. And then we've got these other sizes. So these are generated dynamically, and it depends on what the image is, what the size is that we're going to be doing. So to see this a bit better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of the whole thing here. So let's change this up to 800 by 600.
Okay.
And there we've got a larger image there. So you can see we've got 800 by 600. But now, so this is a constrained layout. So what you can see here is that when this goes smaller, let's put that back to, it will resize with the browser as it gets smaller. So obviously that also, it's less about resizing with the browser. It's more about the fact if you've got it on mobile or something like that, it will not overflow the size. So what we've done with that sizing, so if we go back to the source set, is so this is I changed it up to 800, and you'll see all these different sizes going down there. So we've got the 800 by the 600. What's going on here is that obviously as you've got the if you've got your image being resized here, so at this point where it's on full width and it's on I'm on a high resolution monitor, so this is going to have loaded the 1600 pixel image. So if I open that in a new tab, there we go, it's the 1600 pixel one. So that's what it will have loaded. If I resize down like this, it will try and load the double the size of whatever this is now. So I'm going to see if that works. It may not work. So
no,
there we go. So
close,
1280, or something like that. So if you think about it, what you want now is you want it to have the images that are closest to the actual sizes that it wants to request. And the browser's pretty clever about what it does. So what it's doing here is the list of images that offering to the browser is basically the resolutions of the various devices that you're most likely to be using. So if you think about the sort of devices that you'll be getting, it's not the width of them, because, a phone may be 320 pixels equivalent wide. No phone is 1 pixel resolution depth. All phones are higher resolution, so you're not going to have any really small ones in there. So what we've got here are basically the widths of common device resolutions. So it's going to be able to deliver you, so 960 here, that's like, that's the kind of standard phone width resolution there. And then that's 1080, so that would be like an iPad in vertical. And this going all the way up to the maximum, which is 1600, which is twice this resolution here. So,
I was just going to say, okay, I have lots of questions just to make sure I understand what's happening here. So this library that you built, Matt, uses Unpic to detect the image CDN, and then it uses the CDNs technology or their APIs to do the resizing and to get you these formats. But how did you make that happen? Like, that's what I want to understand. Like, okay, I think I understand what you did, but how did you do it?
So one of the lovely things about the Unpic library, which is where I started out, is it's had a huge number of contributors. And so the answer there is what I've done is I've created a common, let's go back to my,
Yeah, I also want a follow-up question before you even answer the first one is, it does seem like open source is a theme, even, it's been a theme throughout your career and it's something you're interested in. And I wondered if there's anything that a contributor has contributed that's blown your mind or changed everything or just made the biggest impact, or has it been kind of throughout the years, everyone adding little things here and there to make this beautiful thing?
Well, I mean, I think the thing about this one is this is blown up so quickly than I'd ever imagined. I mean, I started this in, I think, in February. And it's now, it's like now got like tens of thousands of downloads a week and everything. And so it's gone absolutely crazy. The thing that's really blown me away is the number of different contributors that I've had from things. So I started off putting in a few that I'd wanted to, that I just to try it out. I started with the ones that were the most popular, and I immediately started getting contributions. And it was from both a mixture of users and also people from the companies themselves. And so like your colleague Colby has been a great help in there. And I know Colby from when I was doing stuff at Gatsby, because he was helping me out on the image stuff back then. So I think I've probably got some of so Colby's great regex of doom for passing Cloudinary URLs there. So but what I've done is I've created a kind of a common interface that makes it gives a sort of standard way to add a new CDN, and you can basically put in there. It gives it. So what I have is a way of you detecting. So we will have domains here. So the domains will be done about which ones if it matches the domain exactly, it will say it will use that CDN. Or if there's a subdomain, some of them use a subdomain. So there we go. Cloudinary, anything under cloudinary.com is detected as Cloudinary. Or WordPress is, files WordPress.com. And then some of them it's done by a path. So if it's /next image, then it's a Next.js one and so on. So that gives you this means that then you can go through and add the support for these. And then I just give a common interface for formatting and detecting the URL. So that's the basis of this. And so for the Unpic library here, it's had quite a few contributions. But the thing that then took it to the next level was when I then started using it for building these components. So this was like this starting point. And then that just blew up once I started to do different frameworks. And the thing that really amazed me is like the number of like basically the kind of people behind all of these frameworks who have jumped in. And so there we go. That's Steve founder of Builder.io. There's Zach who built Eleventy and WebC in there.
And right next door, I see Elad, our buddy from StackBit as well.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. So Elad has been building some of the parts in there as well. And there we go. There's Colby in there who's been helping out too. Yeah, Ben from Svelte Kit, and there we go. So that's David from Solid.js, and that's just a few of them. And basically everybody has come in and just jumped in there because if you look at the list of supported frameworks in here, I said I've been around for a while, but I am not I am not an expert in all of these different frameworks. Now, I did write the sort of initial version of each of them, but all of them have then had most of them have had then somebody come along very politely and said, yes, Matt, maybe there's probably a better way of doing this, or, you've probably completely forgotten ways, but so that's been the thing that's been super fun is this combination of being able to try all these different frameworks, building a component for each one, and then having created this sort of single component, it's almost like one of these exercises of saying, this is the way that you can, try out all these different frameworks by building the same thing in each one. Now, that was a sort of what I did, but then you have the benefit of then having the maintainer of that framework then come along after and sort of gently explain to you why you've done it wrong. So that's kind of the way that this has gone. And it's obviously a lot of the frameworks have got their own existing things in there that have, so they've got their own image components, but not all of them do. And this is a great way of them having the ability to add an image thing to their framework without needing to build something from scratch. So that's one of the nice things there. But it's also is a way for you guys, and I know that Colby has been using Unpic in working on some of the Cloudinary components as well. So I sort of suddenly found myself being this way of bringing together all of these different, competitors working together on these open source things. So that's, both the sort of in the framework side, but also in the CMS and CDN and e-commerce side of it as well. So and it's this sort of, it's the best of open source from my point of view. It's that all these people collaborating on trying to build something that's better, build something that's better for the web. And the winners are the people whose browsers are loading less and are having nicer looking images and are able to not resize things twice. And, so it just, the point with this is that it's just so, and you just don't need to think about it. So obviously we've got the example here with Cloudinary, but say I'm going to load up, you've got a Shopify site, for example. So I'm just going to grab an image, and if I stick that in there instead, oh, come on, yeah. Then I got that, and obviously Shopify has got its own syntax for its images.
It's
pretty simple, and it's just dropped in there. And I think the point there is that you don't even need to know what the image is, where the source is. you just pass it in there, and it will go through there, and it will do it. And that means that you can do that without needing to have any friction, really. So, and these, obviously, you can look at this and say, well, I know what that is. That's a Shopify one. It's pretty simple. I can see that that's a Shopify image, or whatever. Even more, even easier, you could say, okay, well, obviously that's Cloudinary. It says Cloudinary right there in the URL. But the point being that this could be coming from a database somewhere. This could be coming from a CMS or something like that. And you don't want to then have to come up with different, obviously you could just say, okay, I'm just going to offload these all up to Cloudinary and let Cloudinary handle all of my images. And I'm sure you would say, thank you very much, and you'll do a wonderful job of it. But, obviously, I don't think there's any point in doing that for if you've got it coming from Shopify in this sort of situation. But at the same time, you can do stuff where you can say, we'll make it fall back to that. So we will have an image in here, and we will say, I want to force it to be handled by Cloudinary, and then it will be this is something that's still not fully there, and it's something I've actually been working with Colby on. But it's about, you basically will then just tell it, I want the CDN to be Cloudinary, and it will try and process that image with Cloudinary, even if it's not a Cloudinary image, and it may then be able to pass it off as a URL to Cloudinary and get Cloudinary to handle it. Obviously, not all sources can do that, but Cloudinary can. But you obviously have to have it set up in your account to be able to handle that. But the idea is that the defaults need to be super simple, and so just kind of make it so that by default you're doing the best practices. And
one thing that I'm noticing here, because you point out something that as you're right, like if I look at URL structure, I can see if something's coming from Shopify, I can see if something's coming from Cloudinary because it's referenced inside the URL. But where I've seen it actually get really confusing sometimes for developers is when you start putting CNAMEs in front of these content delivery network delivered services. So it might be coming from assets.mattkane.com or something like that. And you're like, well, what is this? So what service is behind this? And so you're kind of adding that layer of opaqueness to it. So I like the fact that, once again, it may not be readily apparent, but you put it in there, it works, it recognizes where it's coming from, and the agnostic aspects of all the different frameworks that are coming in. It's fantastic. I mean, it makes sense why. I remember before we got the chance to even talk here today, I remember Kent Dodds mentioned this to me saying, I love this Unpic project. I'm like, okay, if Kent likes something, there's a reason for it. And then same situation, Alad from StackBit was reaching out to me saying, look what I'm contributing to. And it's like, oh, why are all these amazingly smart people caring? And I think we just demonstrated that very well today. You did demonstrate this very well there today with being able to show how simple and easy it is to be able to work with images, get the right source sets, get the right sizes, and not have to know all the ins and outs about the SDK, about the service, that it works. This is pretty magical.
So I know that one of the things that Kent particularly liked is some of the placeholder support in there. So, placeholders are, a particularly difficult thing in there. And I mean, I'm a big fan of just using a dominant color thing in there. And it's one that I'm not trying to do automatically. What I can do is I can just see if I'm able to get this. So that's Unpic Pixels there, which is the thing on there. And then I'm not going to do this now. I'm not going to do this now because I realize that I need to. There's so many different ways that you can get into this, and I think the point about this one is that these parts of it are very much the simple. You can just do it, and it just works, and it works straight out of the box. Now the background part of it, the placeholders are a lot more decisions need to be made on it. But you can just do a background auto on there, and then you will get a low quality.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
That's the sort of the easy one from that, and that basically is not the sort of the most perfect ideal one there, but basically what it does there is you can see let's make this a bit easier to see. But you can see what it's done here is it's just created a very tiny image as the background in using CSS. So it's not ideal because it does still need to load it over the network. But that's just that one is there because it's really easy to do. You don't need to implement anything at build time or anything like that. But there are lots of other options in there that I'm going to try and put in more ways to make them, more magical and automatic in the background without having to deal with it. The rest of the parts of it are a lot more kind of lower level things that are designed to be used as a kind of part of a toolkit for building other parts. So it's Unpic image, which is the kind of, if you just want to put an image on your website and it to work and to look great and to perform well, then just use it. And you are using one of the supported frameworks, then it should just work straight out of the box there.
I love it. This is so great, Matt. And your time is valuable. And as you pointed out, this project we can probably spend a whole 4 or 5 hours just diving into all the different details that are available to it. But the great thing is that I think within the time that we've had together, we've shown how simple and easy it is for a developer to implement this amazing work that you've done here. So thank you once again for showing this and also just contributing to development ease. One thing that we hear a lot of developers kind of say glibly is they always say well, I'm lazy, so I try to make this as simple as possible. It's that's a good thing. And you've made their job even easier to be able to pull off. So thank you for all this amazing work here, Matt. And
Matt,
for people that have further questions for you, is there a specific place they should be going to for that?
Well, probably still the best place to find me is on Twitter. I think you can stick my name up on there somewhere, but my name is Ascorbic, which is ASCORBIC. And I'm the same. It's the same as my GitHub username, so you can copy it from there. So that is probably still the best place to find me. But I think the thing with this is that the superpower for this is that there's so many ways that people can contribute to it. So my favorite way for people to get involved is to open a PR. And the on-ramp is not big. People can go on there and they can find, if they're wanting to add some support for some little thing for some feature in the image CDN, I literally had somebody add in somebody did a contribution today to add a support for targeting the image tag in lit. Now I don't know the details of how to use the part pseudo selector in the shadow DOM, but somebody did, and they needed it, and they came along and opened a PR, and I checked it out, and it looked great, and I shipped it, and so that is now out there. And if you've got some framework in there that I don't know about, because I got most of them in there, but if not, I would love to see some contributions in there. Open up a PR, open up an issue. Please, if you need something in there, you open an issue, But yeah, open a PR is the best way. I'm very, very open to contributions.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like your openness to contributions is part of what made this so great so quickly. Before you go, I just have one follow-up question, which has to do with video. So we've been talking about images, Unpic. Obviously, this is image specific, but this has really all happened so quickly. I wonder if you have any future plans for Unpic, or if you've thought about incorporating video into this whole flow, or if you have any general plans for the future of Unpic.
So, video is something that it's something that quite a few people have asked about. It's one that I'm not looking at immediately, because the scope of it it's like taking it to another level.
Yeah.
I think, and it is obviously something that is, big. People use it a lot, but it's not anywhere near the scale of images, because every website's got an image on it pretty much. So that's why I'm focusing on images at the moment. But next steps are, I think I kind of hinted them already. It's all about making it easier to use. And I want to make more of these features more accessible, so that particularly things like the placeholder parts, I want those to be working better. I want to be able to do more of the sort of taking account of knowing when it's being run on a server, for example, and knowing that it's able to do stuff there that's not going to be blocking the rendering. Then it's sort of kind of, it's got a bit more budget to deal with stuff when it's running on the server. So I would like to be able to be a bit smarter on that, about knowing those things. Because at the moment, I'm very, it's very much treated as do the absolute minimum possible. I mean, one of the rules that I have in there is that there's no runtime JavaScript at all, aside from, the actual render. So you can SSR it and turn JavaScript off and it will work. So that is one of my baseline rules. So that's why I don't have any fancy animated blur up replacement stuff or any of that kind of things. What I want to do is be able to do as much as possible without anybody needing to jump in and do, think too much about it. And so that's where I want to go further, is about making more of those features work just sort of magically,
or because you've put in the work to make it seem like it's magic.
Well, that's what's hard. Is it takes a lot of work to make these things easy. So
Absolutely.
Well, Matt, wonderful work, and I feel like we're going to have to talk again, because there's lots of contributions that are going to be coming in by the time that people are watching this, once they have a chance to truly absorb all the material that we've covered here today. So, and hopefully they're guiding the path of it. So don't be a stranger. Come on back, and we would love to talk more about what this project is and things that you've learned from working with all the different CDN providers, then also all of the different services that, like Cloudinary, when it comes to images, transformations, what it can do. So this is wonderful. Keep it up, Matt.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, Jen, I would love to know, what's your big takeaway here?
Oh man, lots. I mean, I feel like we just scratched the surface with what Unpic is capable of. I mean, just like one demo, I think we could have done 100 demos and new things could have been discovered. And I'm just so blown away with how fast February, that was just a few months ago. I figured there had been years working on this project, and it's just amazing what he's doing. I mean, there's no client-side JavaScript, and how quickly everything loaded when he was doing the demo. And I'm just blown away that the CSS that handles the resizing, and it keeps the aspect ratio and serves all these options. It avoids layout shift. I mean, it's pretty cool. So, I mean, lots of takeaways, and then just sort of like a zoomed out takeaway is, even on this episode, Matt was kind of like a call to action, right? Like anyone who wants to, submit a PR, just even an issue, like I think that's part of why this all happened so fast, is his openness to contributions and other minds. And that's really impressive to me and really cool and inspiring.
I agree. And I think the thing that's exciting about this is, you touched upon it, is there's passion here. There's people that really care about this. There's developers out there that really want images to work well, simply. And just the amount of contributions that have come in, whether saying support this framework, support this service, and being able to guide a lot of the efforts that Matt's really touched into. I think he's hit a nerve in a way that people are like, okay, I need to respond to this. And that's why I think this is accelerated so deeply. And I appreciate such an amazing engineer like him being able to drive this initiative forward. So, and it makes me really excited, frankly, for Cloudinary, because we've shown a very easy path to someone to use our services, whether they're using it already, like say they're a new developer coming into a project and they're already coming in when they had a Cloudinary account, or somebody that's just saying, I need to create a really nice, easy, simple source set. I know FAuto is going to be in there because he says it's default. And as we've shown, even the background thing is kind of mind blowing what he was able to show right there. So there's just a lot here. So I'm really, really excited by this. Hopefully this comes across in a way that people say, yeah, I can now actually do this thing that maybe didn't come as naturally when I just reviewed certain details from other frameworks, from other services. It's all going to come together now very nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even maybe contribute to it and just, yeah, really highlighting that performant images are important and that is what people want. And thanks to Matt for helping everyone do it better.
Totally true. And this is probably a good call to action to make sure that everybody knows that this is a open source repository, as we pointed out. So this is going to be inside of Matt's GitHub repo. So as you'll see here, Asoric, and if you go ahead and just dive into this, you'll see that Unpic is right there at the top, thanks to the pinned work that you did there. And then if for some reason this is a little too hard for you to remember, always remember unpic.pix is also the site that has a lot of this information there with nice little emojis that help point people to the right areas. On top of all of this, remember that we do have many years of podcasts we've been producing at Cloudinary to talk with developers like Matt and others that are really pushing the boundaries of what web delivery for images, web delivery for videos, as you mentioned, Jen, is all about. So make sure to take a look at some of that podcast material. That's going to be at cloudinary.com/podcasts or wherever you do enjoy listening and watching podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, also even on our own training site, which is our Cloudinary Academy, which is at training.cloudinary.com. We also host them there. And lastly, but very importantly, make sure you are checking out our Cloudinary community to have conversations about some of the things that are coming from developers like Matt and finding out other ways to be utilizing a lot of things that comes to when it comes to image management, image delivery, and all of the details around this. And I know that we're releasing all sorts of fun libraries for some of the frameworks that Matt and I mentioned with Jen in this episode, like Svelte. So there's lots to be paying attention to when it comes to that Cloudinary community too. So Jen, any final thoughts before we let our audience go on with their day?
Okay, not final thoughts, but if you open up your screen to share it again, I was just thinking a little Easter egg in Matt's GitHub. If you open it up and there's like a link to click on it just for listeners to check out. I was checking it out last week. Is he created the fastest camera flash? Like there's a link to it I saw on his About Me on his GitHub just now when you were showing it. But that's something that people can look for as well. We didn't get to highlight it on this episode, but it's definitely something cool to check out and interesting and different, and just had to shout Matt out while we had him on during his episode today. So check that out. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
really
that's wonderful. And I like the little Easter egg at the end of the episode too. So that was a great catch.
Yeah. If you got this far, make sure to check out the flash. Looks really, really cool to me.
Very cool. So on behalf of everybody at Cloudinary, on behalf of Matt, hopefully, and of course, Jen as well, everybody at Cloudinary and that helped produce this episode, thank you for being a part of this DevJams episode. And come on back, because we're going to keep talking with more amazing developers about the inspiring, innovative, interesting things that they are doing with images and videos on the web and mobile today. So take care, and we'll see you at the next one.